Okay, this is the hover vehicles for inspiration traders. There will be one more added to this now that the radar is apparently an effective and very useful item. It is probably going to be based off of the desire over here, an unarmed hover vessel. My other collections will have armed radar scouts. This collection, I believe I will go with an unarmed one. Just the desire here. Originally, the very first version of this blueprint, which doesn't quite look like this, but it was the same basic rectangular shape. It had four hover engines, just like this does. The issue with that I had, though, is I called it the bike. Not because it was really a bike, but because my first experience using the bike, I lost the bike because it had a timer that would only exist for a certain amount of time when I got off of it. And it was like, well, yes, it might have been cheap, but it's actually costing me more if I'm spending time rebuilding the bike. So I made myself an inexpensive hover vessel to start with. It does, Unlock 3 would probably be better and maybe a little cheaper, but I really like the spotlights, so it's an Unlock 5. I've got a rename over time because the bike was not appropriate. One of my other collections, I actually made a bike. For a while there I called it an ATV, but when I decided to make this part of the Inspiration Traders collection, it needed a new name to fit with the collection, and so hence it is the Desire. Being a desire to get moving. I find walking to be very inefficient in the game, so that is my desire, is to stop walking. Okay, this originally started off as one of my first blueprints in the game. Was experimenting with hover vessels. Over time, I ended up dropping that and never made it to the blue workshop. But I never forgot it. Well, then when I decided I wanted a point of interest assault hover vessel to go for inspiration traders, I was like, well, that was one of my first inspirations for hover vehicles. So I revisited it, drew up something that would be a little bigger, a little heavier, that stuff. Something I could accommodate, in this case, you can see all the hover vessel weapons on it. When I released to the workshop, the plasma weapons, the artillery turret, those will be coming off, mostly so that I can bring the unlock level down, the advanced material requirements off, and I will probably, since this has plenty of room for a couple extra turrets, I will probably stick a radar on one of these locations, just because I can. And so this is my endurance. It is a work in progress. If you come here, look at the inside, you can see that yes, it's got a fuel tank. Smack in the middle, it's definitely getting in a different location, and a generator. This is basically just the fuel tank and the generators to allow it so I can get it up and move. Part of the reason being, when I build my hover vessels very often, I will start with the core on the very bottom. I may move it later in the build, but I will usually start with it at the bottom on the ground, put some hover engines on it, some thrusters so it actually stay in one place. So I start framing it out, the bottom layer of it, and then I will put a fuel tank and generator on it so I can give it some lift, so that I can then begin, really doing some work on the underside. And also, since the the ground's not usually typically that even, I don't always take the time to level the ground first. I may find that continuing the build, I have to get it up off the ground because I'm starting to place the blocks in the ground to do so. So this is the endurance, very much a work in progress. I don't know if you saw too well there, but based on my recent experiences, how things have gotten tougher and rebalanced, that will be should be a double window. If it is not currently a double window, it will be. As you can see, yes, it is currently Not a whole lot of extra panes of glass there, but there is one extra pane. My plan is to, similar to another one of my more heavier point of interest assault vessels, is to have a secondary cockpit, something that might be a little better protected away from the front. So, okay, so we got the Desire, we got the Endurance. Let's move over here to the Faith. The Inspiration Traders, I built the Faith to be a small, economical mining vessel. I want to say it's just a little bit more in cost than the popular Ladybug. So you know, it still is not quite as cheap, but it is fairly cheap. The wider placement of the drills here allow me to use a closed cockpit here. So, you know, with some O2 tanks on this thing, it gives me some of my preferred operation that I can use it on the moon, other hostile environments without having to worry so much. So this is the Faith Hover Miner. And since I have issues occasionally in the past where if I fell out of the thing I'd be trying to get it back in from various odd angles, that is part of the reason why the cockpit is so exposed. That is why I have that enclosure there. Yes, it makes it look a little better to have it there, but also so that if necessary I can, you know, if I'm having trouble clicking on the cockpit, but that's in the site, I can click on that, have it, you know, open up, and maybe I can have a little more access to the cockpit. But that was one of the goals when I built this thing, is access from as many angles as I could, you know, this way. Yes, I don't have access from the sides, but pretty good access from that way. So it is an inexpensive mining hover vessel. Over here we have the Energy. This is based off of, or really the latest iteration of my first racing hover vehicle. I put this cockpit with a bunch of thrusters around it. I really had a lot of thrusters in the back. The first iteration didn't have much thrusters in the front or sides, but it did have a ton of RCS, like this one currently is hiding back here, and you know, the array of thrusters in the back. So the first build of this, very good forward acceleration. The RCS for some turning, but through the advice of others that I followed and put into practice, and found them to be very wise in that regard. Some side thrust was definitely needed for improvement there. I did improve the forward thrust a little as well as at it, allowing it to handle better on the tracks. Kept this around because I really like it, but in the end, this did not become my official entry that I was building a racer for in that contest. There was a couple of other designs I had done that I liked a little better, and one of those became the official entry. But I have kept this around, called it the Energy, and made it part of the Inspiration Traders. So, and I think, yeah, not a big selection of hover vessels here, but just the basics. And as I said, eventually I will be adding a radar one after I have some experience with Alpha 8. Right now it's currently an experimental. I haven't been playing it in experimental. I just been working on building, because I have quite a few things to envision to be built here. So like the Endurance and many others in my other collections that I have visions for that stuff. So hope you enjoy. Good day.